Okay. Okay. Are we good to go? One, two, three, four. Are we good to go? Happy Thursday, everybody. Hope everyone's having a fantastic week. We are going to talk some boxing. You know, we're going to cover some things. Boots Ennis and Cody Crowley was just announced. We're going to recap a little of that Jose Ramirez versus Francis Barthelemy, Vergil Ortiz versus Thomas Delorme. We're obviously going to get into Canelo versus Munguia and its undercard. And I was going to start with Canelo versus Munguia, but there has been some pretty, I would say, I would stop short of devastating, but definitely disappointing boxing news that broke, and that has kind of stolen all the headlines. And there's an irony in this, being that we just had the press conference for Canelo Munguia, where Oscar De La Hoya ripped into Canelo for being a drug cheat, and here we are later on in the same day, which was late yesterday. Ryan Garcia, it turns out, tested positive for PEDs. Ostarine was one of them, and narandrosterone is the other one. And we're going to talk a little bit about what those PEDs do, and we're also going to talk about we're going to leave room for the possibility that Ostarine ended up in another substance. It has done that in the past. Like, there have been MMA fighters who got caught with Ostarine. Sean O'Malley got caught with it. Most recently, Daniel Rodriguez got caught with it, and I think he actually got his suspension overturned. So we have to leave room for what's possible, but we could also discuss what's probable, what you think is the case. Stan Tucker is in the house. Thank you for coming through. Probably dad and mom. Hey guys, love y'all. TJ is in the house. What's going on? We were just talking. That's Chilltown Boxing on Twitter, and we were just talking about Jessica McCaskill, and we were talking about what was the 126 division. And we were talking about a couple of the matchups there. We often talk a lot of boxing in the Twitter DMs. But Ryan Garcia just tested positive for PEDs, and there's a lot of the term is Schadenfreude, when you see fans who take pleasure in people's misfortune. Like, when something goes bad for somebody, some people take delight in it, right? But you also oddly have a lot of defenders, like staunch defenders, who start pointing the other way and saying, well, what about, and start doing all of that to seemingly make excuses for the person who just tested positive for PED. So, let's get right into it. Ryan Garcia tested positive for the tests that were conducted on the 19th, which was the day before the fight, and just after the fight on the 20th. So he tested positive for those two substances. One of them, the narandrosterone, they are waiting for another analysis to come through that will indicate whether this finding was from an external source, like whether it was something that his body didn't naturally produce, or if it was not. So that's for the second substance. But the Ostarine was in there. Lee Van is in the house. Oh yeah, the Knicks are playing. Yeah, the Knicks are definitely playing, and that last one against Philly was good. And speaking of Schadenfreude, I, as a Laker fan, somewhat delight when the Knicks have it bad. Sorry, that's just the nature of my sports fandom when it comes to the NBA and when it comes to my Lakers. Yeah. But look, Ryan Garcia tested positive, and without missing a beat, he comes with the alibi, which you would expect, right? It's commonplace that the fighter already has the excuse lined up as to why they failed that PED test. And his excuse was he was taking this supplement. It was like a multivitamin type of thing. I know people who take the. I'm not gonna. Should I try to pronounce it? It is called ashwagandha, and it's commonly taken. it actually it's great for testosterone and libido. I'm told by a homie actually, who when I showed him the screenshot of Ryan Garcia saying, "Hey, my bad, I shouldn't have taken this." Like that's the reason he tested positive. That's what Garcia is suggesting. That is what my homie came back with. He said, "LOL, ashwagandha made him fail a drug test." He said, "I take that. It's good for testosterone and libido." And that friend shall remain nameless for the sake of the chat. But um, the alibi is expected. Whether or not any of us are buying it is another question. And you could test the supplement, you could test the drug to see if that does cause an adverse finding for ostarine in somebody's urine. So that's his alibi. But it's just it takes so much of the magic out of what we just witnessed a couple of weekends ago. Like we just saw an underdog who was like a 5-1 underdog hit with 7 or 8-1 underdog in a lot of books. I saw Haney as like a plus or a minus 800 to a 1,000 in some books. We went from seeing this underdog, even though we knew he had tremendous talent, but we saw him pretty much inspire with his performance even after he missed weight. And we as fans, because they shook on it, well, they agreed to move on with the event even after he missed weight by 3 pounds. 3 pounds, which if you look at the strategy in missing 3 pounds, and I think it was one of Devin Haney's cornermen that pointed this out, if you miss weight by 3 pounds, it's not 1 pound, because if it's 1 pound, they're going to expect you to do your damnedest to try to make that, shed that last pound and to make weight. If it's 7, 8 to 10 pounds, they'll just cancel the event. They won't even let the fighters have the option to continue with the event. 3 pounds is kind of like that happy medium to where you can negotiate a path forward like they did. So because they agreed on it, we looked the other way. But now you mean to tell me that Devin Haney took that beating, hit the canvas 3 times, got concussed, I don't know how many times, but he got rocked several times, hurt and damaged to the point where, fans and the boxing community, we don't know what Devin Haney's going to look like going forward. We don't know what irreparable damage was done to Devin Haney. So whether or not there's like a punitive recourse, whether there's punitive damages that Haney could get from, Ryan Garcia if they take this to court and they sue him for like breach of contract and whatever they are trying to charge him, if they do move forward with some legal action, that doesn't erase the physical and potentially neurological damage that was already done. So there is that. It's just very disappointing that, again, one of the most, and when I say magic moment, I just mean one of those kind of awe-inspiring moments where the people are watching the event and they're just jaw-dropped like, damn, this is just one of those moments. You feel like this is a fight or a performance that you could be talking about 5, 10, 20 years down the line. One of those. And just like that, Ryan Garcia goes from possibly the new face of boxing to perhaps a disgrace to boxing. Just like that. Benji Tucker is in the house. Missed weight and roids. Yeah, that's not a euphemism either. They tried to kill him. I don't think that's, this is the hurt business, as they said. You know what I mean? And look, Ryan Garcia right now, I don't know if he gets exonerated because it ended up that this ashwagandha did contain ostarine. Okay, that would be forgivable. It would. If he knowingly or his team knowingly put him in there with these banned substances because it did the things that, if you read about ostarine, because it does these things, it enhances your muscle growth. It helps you cut weight while improving your explosiveness, power, speed. If they sent him in there trying to do that, that should come with some criminal charge. I know that that's not the way boxing's architecture is designed, but they've got to rewrite the rules. You know what I mean? Like this is totally unacceptable. Like from a competitive standpoint, from a human standpoint, Ryan Garcia is looking like one of the biggest scam artists, con artists, that the sport has seen in recent memory. And look, he can deny it to the high heavens. Unlike the court of law, if you get pulled over, charged with something, you're fighting a case where you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. This doesn't apply here. You are guilty until proven innocent because, damn it, you just failed the PED test. That is the guilt. Now you've got to prove your innocence. And look, if they need to dive deeper into the practices of VADA or the UFC doesn't use USADA anymore. They do their testing with the in-house organization, which raises its own red flags. But if it turns out that these practices are too stringent, or they're not threading the needle where they're finding substances or they're banning substances that are contained in other substances, stuff like that, it's incumbent on the fighter to check whatever the hell they are ingesting for the array of banned substances. And if you've got money, like these A-list fighters, that's easier to do. Like if you're a blue-collar fighter who's working 2 jobs and have a professional career, yeah, it's harder to test everything that you're ingesting. You know what I mean? I almost feel like it's more permissible or excusable for a fighter who makes $50,000 to $75,000 a year than it is for a multi-million-dollar fighter. If you are fighting at that elite level and you make that kind of money, you should be able to test everything that you're taking to make sure that no multivitamin is containing ostarine. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Jake Foreman, what's going on? Said, what's up, Woog? Ryan Garcia came up with about 3 different excuses. He also said that if he did test positive, they should have stopped him from fighting. Is he just playing dumb? Oh, the audio is low. My bad. Yeah, let me know. Let me turn this up. Give me just a second. Game right here. I'm just learning how to use some of this stuff, but yeah, let me know if this is any better. Boom, boom. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah. Cesar, thank you. How's the audio sounding right now? Yeah. What I don't know if to Jay Foreman's question, I don't know if he's playing dumb. I mean, it's absurd. That type of a response, and he's continuing his celebration tour. They should have stopped the fight. You know that the mechanisms in boxing, the test results, unlike what some people are saying, some people are saying that it comes out like in 72 hours. Victor Conti, who should know a thing or two about this, says that it takes significantly longer for the test results to come in. So there are reasons why, and if they could fix this, they should. Yes, if somebody is found to be coming in with a banned substance, they shouldn't. On the surface, you look at the ethics in that. No, they shouldn't be able to fight. But there are reasons why that's not the case right now. So Ryan Garcia, he's smart. He should be smarter than that. And there should be something to where he loses millions of dollars because he said in interviews after the win. Thank you, Caesar. He said after the win that coming in 3 pounds heavy was a part of his plan, was a part of his strategy. How am I supposed to believe that the adverse finding, the PED, isn't also a part of the strategy? And you look at the cavalier way that he's responding to this. Look, I think that a year to 2 years minimum should be the ban, unless he does something to actually prove that something that he was taking contained ostarine. And by the way, I still haven't heard like Alicia Baumgartner, like the WBC, and has exonerated her, but I haven't heard of a testing agency exonerating her. Dillian White, I heard that he got off because it was a procedural technicality that allows him to continue and to get back in the ring, which he already has. But look, 1 to 2 year minimum. And I jokingly said on Twitter, 2025 or 2026, Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn. Do it in Florida, because Florida seems not to care about, in the COVID 2020 when everything was shut down, Florida was a state that kept rocking, right? That's where the UFC went before they built the Apex. They went to Florida because Florida was down to allow them to host their event. So Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn in Florida, call it the Juice Bowl. You could have it where it's not even declared what weight it's going to be at. Let them both come in at whatever weight they want to come in. Call it like super mystery weight class, and just proceed as such. Because as it stands, Ryan Garcia, I don't think it's a stretch to call him a disgrace to boxing right now. It was bad enough that he missed weight and that he did so blatantly, and he did have an impressive performance. He dropped Haney 3 times, but if he was juicing, there should be all types of recourse. And Haney and team, they let Ryan off the hook with the weight, right? They agreed to going in, with the payment arrangement that they agreed to. They should have let him off the hook for this because, again, the damage that Haney suffered might have been irreparable. So they should squeeze every dollar out of Ryan Garcia that they can. Everything short of criminal charges because, again, that's just not a part of the boxing landscape, the boxing mechanisms. It just isn't. It should be in the future. I think that if you knowingly, as a fighter, take PEDs that can further harm your opponent, there should be criminal charges that come along with that. This isn't baseball where the worst you're going to get is the batter hitting a 475-foot homer instead of a 415 homer. You know what I mean? This isn't basketball or tennis where you're going to be like, you're going to be dog tired while the other person is finding their second win, able to kick it into another gear. No, this is boxing where there is no barrier between you and your fellow competitor. In baseball, there's a glove, a bat, a ball. In basketball, there's a ball, a hoop. All these things in between, the imposition from one person to the other. In boxing and MMA, it's as raw as it gets. It's one person trying to impose their strategy and their physicality on the other. That should come with criminal charges if you're juicing purposely in that sport. It's crazy. It's really crazy. And the more Ryan Garcia acts in this cavalier manner, again, who knows? Maybe he could exonerate himself. But as it stands, the way that he's acting, I would have no sympathy with a 24-month ban. And I think that he should be heavily, heavily penalized because if he's just, suspended for like a year, I think that further incentivizes and encourages cheating because the reward outweighs the risk. You get the bag and you get to keep the bag, and whatever 6-month, 12-month suspension you get on the other side of that, well, it was all worth it. Furthermore, Ryan Garcia bet on himself. If you believe him, he said that he bet what, like a couple $1 million on himself to win, like around $8 million or whatever because of the lopsided betting odds. So if you were juicing, miss weight, bet on yourself, took the money from the casino, I mean, come on. Like, how much more corrupt and like dishonest, like dishonorable. It's just a total lack of integrity. You know what I mean? I don't think that Ryan Garcia, unless he's proven innocent, we can never look at Ryan Garcia in the same way after this. And like, if it was another sport, I don't know if I would be arguing so passionately about how bad this is. But because it led to hard punches to the face, like, yes, Devin Haney was getting hit with repeated hooks that we wouldn't expect of him. But what if, like, in that moment, Ryan Garcia would have been that much more tired or unable to just let his hands go? What if Devin Haney would have been able to, pick off a couple of more? These little things make a huge difference. And when you look back and you think back, look, Ryan Garcia has one of the most outsized punches in all of boxing. He does. Pound for pound, he has proven to be one of the hardest punchers in the sport. When you see Haney hitting the canvas and they're looking up like, damn, and then getting up, trying to fight on, winning the next few rounds, or getting dropped a couple of more times. I mean, he got hurt in the first round, dropped in the 7th, dropped in the 10th, in the 11th, fought on to make it to the end of the fight, and he had to endure that against a cheater. Like, look, how can you defend that? Like, I get fanship. I get it if you were pulling for one guy over the other. But with this amount of evidence and what we're witnessing, how can you be on the side of that behavior and start thinking about, what about when so and so did this, or he agreed to the fight, or in the case of what you're saying, Ryan Garcia said, they should have stopped the fight from occurring. Are you kidding me? You know that that's not how the sport operates. Sports Hub is in the house. Audio, yeah. Let me know if the audio is bad. It was bad earlier. Thank you for coming through. Benji Tucker, my family. What's up, Brexley? Hi, Brex. Benji said he bet 500,000 per pound that he would be over the agreed weight, just so that Devin Haney would not prepare himself for that strategy. Yeah. To the Haney's credit, they noticed visually how much larger he was, which led to the wager. Yeah, they predicted that he wasn't going to make weight. I remember, I think it was Boxing Wave that said, I think he's going to miss, it was around the time of the press conference or whatever the moment was when Devin Haney kind of slapped Garcia. Because of how big Garcia was looking, I remember Boxing Wave said, hey, he looked really, really big. And yeah, it turns out that was all a part of the plan. It's really frustrating. It's a sad day for boxing. Like, look, I get why a lot of people who are Devin Haney fans, who saw him get beaten up to a pulp, right? Get beaten up really badly, to where when he hopped up, on the turnbuckle, like he kind of like lost his footing, like he wasn't even steady enough to just jump up after the end of the 12th round and to like just put an arm up and show the crowd like, yeah, I did my thing too. He wasn't able to do that. So this is probably going to be ruled a no contest, but that's like the bare minimum. That does not bring justice to the situation. It simply doesn't. It doesn't. It's the least that boxing can do to make this right by Devin Haney. It's the least boxing can do. But yeah, and also, I feel like other people should speak up and say something. Oscar De La Hoya gave, a Golden Boy, not Oscar specifically, unless you've heard Oscar actually interview on this. He probably has, since they're doing like their final rounds for this Canelo versus Munguia, which we're also going to get to. But I saw the kind of, boilerplate statement from Golden Boy saying, we believe him. Ryan Garcia has repeatedly said that he's innocent. We believe him. We're going to wait for more information, all of that. But I feel like the individuals in Golden Boy need to speak up. I feel like Derek James needs to say something. Say you knew nothing, you got nothing to do with this, you know nothing about this. Say something, because it makes the whole orbit look a little bit rotten right now. Because if the trainer is with the fighter, and if you weren't, if Ryan Garcia was just checking in to train like a couple hours a day and was just leaving to do his own thing, and you can kind of see, he is so manic. And, I have trouble picturing how Joe Goosen was even able to get along and work with the guy for like 2 fights. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did Joe Goosen even survive that two fights that he had with Ryan Garcia? Because Ryan Garcia seems to be so off the wall. Derry James needs to say something. De La Hoya needs to say more. And Eric Gomez, the matchmaker for Golden Boy, needs to say something. Like, this is a very, very bad look. And again, it killed a otherwise magic moment for boxing just like that. It just taints the whole thing. Whatever you thought about the performance, you got to take damn near all of that back. You got to take all of it back. I know some people say, but, he performed the way that he did. Yes, he did. But if he was cheating, this was not a fair fight. It was already not a fair fight because of the weight. It was so much less of a fair fight because of the Osterine and the Nerandosterone. There's a shorter word that also describes the substance. I wrote the full word down, so bear with me. But yeah, again, the new face of boxing might have just become the disgrace to boxing. It's messed up. But yeah, and it is ironic that Oscar De La Hoya, Turkey, said that the audio is super messed up. Let me try to do something about this. Check 1 2. Let me know how I'm sounding. And it might be because I'm pulling back from the mic like that. So if I'm pulling back from the mic or looking the other way, it could be that. So I'm going to come a little bit closer. Here we are. Check 1, check 2. Jay Foreman said this Garcia story will only get wilder. At the end, Garcia will blame his mental health. I wonder what Oscar is thinking right now. I wonder why Oscar just blamed or just accused Canelo Alvarez of being a drug cheat at that press conference. I'm assuming Oscar had gotten word, hey, this test turned out positive for your boy Ryan Garcia. I think that he had already gotten the message. Why accuse Canelo of being a drug cheat if that's instantly gonna boomerang right back at your own fighter? I mean, the timing just seems really poor on Oscar's part. By the way, that was an entertaining press conference, but it's just interesting that Oscar took that moment to call Canelo a drug cheat, literally the day, because it was revealed to the public later on that same day that Ryan Garcia tested positive. So if Oscar did do that, knowing that his fighter tested positive, then it just makes you wonder, like, damn, what are all of these fighters, trainers, promoters? What do they all think? Like, it just makes you question anybody's like integrity with this stuff. Like, if you're gonna bold-face accuse Canelo of cheating, knowing that news is about to break that your fighter just cheated, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think that the Golden Boy, like the head operators, like Eric Gomez, would keep that from Oscar the moment that he learned that, hey, I got to talk to you about something. It doesn't make any sense, but it is a little bit ironic. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this. But we're going to shift gears to Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia. Let me just take a quick sip. It is Canelo versus Munguia fight week. I know it's not the fight that we wanted, but it's the fight that we got. Let's dive into it. All right. Let's see. Yeah, let me know if my audio is still good, still bad. But Canelo versus Munguia, the more that I see what people are saying about it, even in the comments to my recent preview and prediction video on the fight, it seems like a good amount of people actually think that Jaime Munguia's got the goods to not only push Canelo, but to perhaps pull it off. Now, there's certain voices, Paulie Malignaggi, who did I hear recently weigh in? Sergio Mora. They're going with Canelo, but like Paulie said that this was just 1 year too early. Like in a year, Munguia should be able to beat Canelo. But Canelo is just on the side of the roller coaster before you are too far off, too far down to where Munguia, the younger, strong dude, tough kid, Munguia will be able to beat you. I was thinking that for Munguia to win this fight, he's got to fight a balanced enough fight to where you are competitive in the first half of the fight and you are making Canelo work enough, but just enough to where you haven't thrown so many punches, because Munguia likes to throw a lot of punches. Canelo likes to pick his spots and to throw more meaningful punches per punch. Munguia's got to throw enough volume to be competitive enough. And I think that he needs to do some sort of like distance fighting where you're making Canelo work through your jab, where you come forward in certain moments, but then you pull back in certain moments. Kind of give him a diverse look. You do some fighting forward, but then maybe in the last minute of the round, after you've done enough work to make the round competitive, throw enough combinations at Canelo. Don't get caught, because at any point, I think Canelo could catch Munguia with a clean shot. I'm Canelo will catch Munguia with one clean shot. It's more likely that he does that than Munguia hits Canelo with any one particular shot that changes things. Munguia hits hard, but he's kind of a volume puncher. He's throwing hard punches, but not change the landscape of the fight with one punch type of power. Even though, I mean, tell John Ryder that, right? But I feel like he's got to be measured enough to win enough of the early rounds to make Canelo feel like he's got to work hard in the second half of the fight to preserve enough energy if you're Jaime Munguia to be able to further put your foot on the gas in the second half of the fight. So jab from a distance, throw enough combinations, but don't be reckless. Try to emulate what Bivol did. I know you're not Dimitri Bivol. You don't have the fight IQ. You don't have the distance management. But throw enough combinations from the outside at long range and then take a step back to then make Canelo have to use his legs to come forward and start hunting you down. So give him a little bit of the Caleb plan, but then, put it on him. Give him a little bit of the Triple G, put it on him for a few moments, and then dial it back. Hopefully, for Munguia's sake, Canelo is already like super reddish purple, disheveled looking like he's already been through the ringer, and then has to pile on some points in the second half of the fight to win the fight. Because then you're kind of playing with house money. You're then getting Canelo to overexert himself to where maybe that 33 years of age could then kick in. And then you could put your foot on the gas as the younger fighter and be able to out-volume him. Always got to be responsible volume. But you could out-volume him to where you're just voluminous enough to not be reckless, but have enough volume to not turn into a Chavez Jr. or Jermell Charlo. Let's see. DJ said, what are your thoughts on Canelo versus Munguia undercards? We'll get to that. Karma Serene is in the house. She said, are you on PEDs? What? No, so I am on some, there is no Ostarine in this ginger tea. You know what I mean? Like, I would have, look, on Thursday evening, I would have cracked the beer. I would have drank, or had like a shot of something in the evening, just kind of like loosen up a little bit. But I try to save that for the weekend, quite frankly. And lately, to be honest, I've been more on certain teas, because what I also realized about certain teas, if you get like a mint tea or like a ginger tea, it actually helps. It helps with the voice a little bit, This one is a decaf. I do drink coffee in the morning, but to answer your question, no, I am not on PEDs. But I do, try to keep the energy flowing. Believe it or not, throughout the day, I say, very little through many portions of the day. Like, I do get on different, business or work calls and stuff like that. But I pick my spots. I guess you could say that I'm in my Canelo stage when it comes to your verbal output. You know what I mean? I dial it back in the right moments, but then I try to be effective with the shots that I do throw. So yeah, but I've stopped short of PEDs. We'll see if that remains the case like in the years to come. You know what I mean? Maybe at some point I'll need them. Flaming Sports Media. Oh, you said that my mic sounds like it's not connected. Thank you. What about now? Check 1 2. Let's see. Check 1 2. Let me turn this up a little bit, see if that helps. 1 2 1 2. How are we? Let me know if we're good. Yeah. There doesn't appear to be anything loose. What I think that's happening maybe is that I might be pulling back from the mic a little bit too much. But let me know. We're gonna do one more of these little sound checks. Check 1 2. Check 1, check 2, check 3, check 4. Microphone check, and then I check some more. Yeah, let me know if we're good. Flaming Sports Media said, thank you for that, by the way. I get that we're all about boxing over here, but I just wanted your general thoughts on influencer boxing. I'm not too proud to talk influencer boxing. Yeah, I think it's a distance thing. Thank you, Karma. Heck yeah. Is it good or bad for the sport? or neither. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be neither. When it comes to influencer boxing, I feel like there are levels to it. You know, like the misfits boxing, when you've got some of those undercards where it's like purely influencers. Some of these guys look like it truly is their first time lacing them up. I'm not into that. I do think KSI is better than most of them. Even his little brother, Deji, the one who fought Floyd, and it was actually Jake Paul's actual first fight. It wasn't a professional fight, and he stopped Deji, I believe. But Deji was the guy that he fought before Anderson Gibb. Jake Paul, I no longer look at as influencer boxing. It was influencer boxing when he was fighting Nate Robinson and Anderson Gibb. It was kind of still influencer boxing when he fought Ben Askren. It stopped being influencer boxing, in my view, when he fought Tyron Woodley, and then when he fought Anderson Silva, Tommy Fury, Nate Diaz. Like, that is not influencer boxing. It's not it's not high-level professional boxing. This Tyson fight is something else. I still don't know how to classify this. A part of me still thinks it's a little bit sad, and I expect Tyson to get beat and beaten pretty handily. If you remember what Tyson looked like in 2004 against Danny Williams and against Kevin McBride in 2005, late stage Mike Tyson looked kind of sad. He was sitting on the outside with his gloves kind of here. He didn't have the legs. When people romanticize over Mike Tyson in a way that's just irrational. I can't think of another sports figure that people suspend belief with. Like there's so much mysticism and just like reputation around Mike Tyson that people are willing to forget what just happened a couple years ago against Roy Jones. That wasn't like a pleasing performance. That looked like two old guys fighting, and one guy had more energy and more power than the other guy. That's what it looked like. But if you look at what Tyson really looked like when he was really in the ring last, he was a sitting duck from the outside. He looked like he looked when he fought Lennox Lewis from the outside, where you no longer have the legs to get inside and to do that bob and weave and to start throwing shots, right hands up top, a left hook to the body and start mixing it up. To do all of that where your feet have to go 1, 2, 3 to get inside, and you're just wreaking havoc. Tyson is more just absorbing punches from the outside, looking for an opportunity to step inside for a moment, maybe let a couple of punches go. But however fierce you think Mike Tyson is looking in those 15-second clips, just remember, this fight's going to hit a point, probably in the second round, that Tyson's going to remember, oh yeah, that's why I don't do this anymore. And it's going to look sad. And I'm just hoping that Jake Paul keeps it a jab battle and is happy with just kind of winning it from the outside and doesn't start putting too many right hands or left hooks together in the in the middle to late rounds. Now, it's going to work in Mike Tyson's benefit that this is 8 2-minute rounds. I looked at that as being the most important factor in this match. Is it going to be 3-minute rounds? Is it going to be 2-minute rounds? If it's 3-minute rounds, I don't think Tyson goes the distance. You know what I mean? I unfortunately think he gets stopped. 2-minute rounds, he might survive it. But yeah, those are my short thoughts about influencer boxing. I don't know how many people it's actually attracting to like the fights that matter. I don't know how many people are going to watch Beterbiev versus Bivol because they watched KSI versus fill in the blank. I don't know if that conversion is happening. I don't. Jake Paul is the most significant YouTube boxer. The guy that I wish Jake Paul fought was Vitor Belfort after Holyfield looked terrible against Belfort. I would have wanted to see that one. And there was, I did want to see Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. Jake Paul impressed me there, but I would have wanted to also see him against Vitor Belfort. That one would have made sense. Who is making that sort of an impact, I think, in boxing is Turki Al-Sheikh. He's like a boxing fan's dream come true. And I don't know how long this magic carpet ride is going to last. And I say magic carpet ride obviously because it's just suspend belief. Think about the top 5 to 10 fights you could imagine having, like Beterbiev versus Bivol. I don't know if y'all remember, like one of my live chats like several months ago, I was thinking about crowdfunding Beterbiev versus Bivol because the boxing economy didn't seem like it could put that fight together. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't think that Matchroom could pull it off. Top Rank couldn't pull it off. Nobody could put that fight together. I was thinking about crowdfunding, trying to get all of the boxing influencers from the fighters to the fans. I was going to get everybody who knew anybody to reach out to whoever was in their circle, trying to pull together as many funds to be able to pull the event off. I was really thinking about, is this going to require a Kickstarter or a GoFund, something to pull off Beterbiev versus Bivol. But then here comes Turkey Al-Sheikh. You know what I'm saying? Like, problem solved. Problem solved. So he's doing a lot more for boxing than I think influencer boxing is doing for boxing, in terms of potentially growing the sport. Because Ngannou, being an MMA guy, and what we just witnessed with Ngannou versus Fury and then versus AJ, that was some exciting stuff. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that helps attract some more audience. You know, what would really help attract audience, I believe, is if either this Amazon deal with PBC, which I don't know how this is going to work out. I know there are a lot of people who are already writing PBC's obituary, but depending on how PBC and Amazon Prime and this Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, and if Netflix continues to operate in the boxing space, if something like that could start regularly putting on boxing cards, and you have some level of investment, actual financial investment from Netflix or Amazon, where it's not just, okay, you can use our platform, but we ain't investing in this stuff. If they could actually take some custodianship and some stewardship of the sport and act like they like boxing and care about boxing in the way that Turkey Al-Sheikh does, if we could get that, I think that we could grow the sport, because now you would be tapping into an audience that already has the platforms. You wouldn't have to subscribe to DAZN. I subscribe to DAZN. I understand why a lot of people who don't love the sport as much as I do don't subscribe to DAZN. You know, you've got ESPN, ESPN Plus, but they almost like, they kind of half care. Like, I get the feeling that ESPN and Disney couldn't care less about boxing. Like, it might be a little bit better right now, but usually when there's a Top Rank card and there's like a Luis Alberto Lopez fight, I've got to go to the ESPN app. I've got to start scrolling past darts, or no, that's the zone. I've got to start scrolling past like tennis, soccer, lots of soccer, and a bunch of other sports. MMA, they prioritize MMA in their queue more than they do boxing. You've got to look for the I don't know, what's another example? The Michael Conlan fight, or who else is it? Usually if it's like Teofimo Lopez, it might be a little bit easier to find, you know, or a Lomachenko night or something like that. But usually you got to do some scrolling if it's one of their, you know, one of their lesser, if it's a Robesi Ramirez card or something like that. So if you get Amazon or Netflix to care, I think that you could grow the boxing audience, because I feel like that's what has to happen. Otherwise, you get this like tier-based system where you either have like an outrageously priced pay-per-view card like PBC, or you've got this other, quite frankly, unsustainable boxing business model like you're getting with Turkey Al-Sheikh. Because that's not, they're not making, look, they might be growing the attraction that is Riyadh, Saudi Arabia through boxing, but event by event, they're not making a profit. If they're, whatever they're paying these fighters, they're not making more in return for each of these cards. Like, I don't know what they're going to pay Terrence Crawford or Madrimov or Vergil Ortiz or Tim Tszyu. Can't wait for that one, by the way. I don't know what they're going to pay all of these fighters for this LA card, but the card isn't going to, you're not going to be in the black and not in the red. You're not going to make a profit per event with that model. There has to be some sort of a happy medium to where you could give the people the fights that they want, have fights regularly, but make it available to the public where you don't have to have this expensive like streaming service that you have to subscribe to. You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be some sort of a intersection where you can actually
grow the boxing audience, because I think that is still what's not being done. Yes, we are seeing some of our favorite fights. Beterbiev versus Bivol. Last year, we had several of them. We had Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia, Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, Lomachenko Haney, Benavidez versus, Caleb Plant and Andrade. We had a lot of really good fights last year. But in that same year, Showtime goes out of business. You know what I'm saying? So they've got to figure out a way to make a sustainable boxing business. I think PBC is trying to figure that out. I think Matchroom, Golden Boy, and DAZN are still trying to figure that out. We'll see where that lands. But that's what ultimately has to happen. The audience has to grow. When PBC started, that's what they were trying to do. That's why they brought it to CBS and Fox. They try to democratize boxing, bring it to everybody. The stories changed with PBC over the years. Once CBS pulls out, NBC pulls out, Fox pulls out, all of a sudden they're finding themselves only on Showtime, basically. And then now Showtime's out. So that didn't work. But when they came in with the model, that's what they were trying to do. And we got some good free fights. We got like Keith Thurman versus Sean Porter on a regular channel, like a non-cable regular channel. But so much has changed even since then. The streaming's taken over. It's a totally different consumer content landscape. I mean, the dark horse in this thing, I think, who hasn't really fully come in to make a splash is YouTube/Google. Like, they'll do the Pro Box cards. Like, I watched the former featherweight champion Nicholas Walters fight Joseph Adorno on YouTube. If YouTube and Pro Box, if they start to like care to where they invest, maybe that's another avenue for success. But we'll see. Let's see. DJ said, is throwing punches in bunches the best strategy to beat this version of Canelo? Yeah, punches in bunches is, but it has to be matched with enough movement, because if you throw too many punches in bunches, you could get James Kirkland. I had said that in the preview. You got to be careful, because Canelo is a much sharper shooter than Jaime Munguia. And I do think Munguia is going to get caught with something big. Let's see. Flaming Sports Media said, I agree. It's unfortunate, but Mike Tyson may go to sleep here. If Tyson goes to sleep versus Jake Paul, that would be one of the saddest days in boxing. Like, I think I said this when in my early thoughts video about this fight. I kind of view this as like the high school jock beating up the elder coach. And it's messed up. And again, it really comes down to legs. I don't care how explosive Tyson looks in those short clips. It comes down to legs. Like, I wonder what Tyson looks like 20 minutes into a workout where he's got to like keep on moving his feet. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder how he looks in those moments. I think he's going to look every bit of 50 plus after the second round. Let's see. Jay Foreman said 100-year-old Mike still beats Godzilla. This is kind of sad. It's also not a smart move by Paul. Even if he wins, he loses. I think that to a degree, but I also think there's a part of Jake Paul that's on that, 50 Cent, the rapper, did it back in the day, where he lived under the creed that any publicity is good publicity. This is before Get Rich or Die Trying, that landmark splash of an album. This is when he was just making enemies with his song How to Rob, an industry in. Like, it was on the Into Deep soundtrack. This is when 50 Cent was just coming out, produced by the Track Masters, and he was pissing off the Wu-Tang. He was pissing off like all kinds of rappers. It wasn't just, this is before the Ja Rule beef, but he thought that even if they say a lot of bad about me or people hate me, it's better to be hated than for people to be apathetic about you and to not care about you. So I think that Jake Paul, even if he becomes the biggest villain in boxing, first of all, he's still promoting Amanda Serrano. He's still trying to do enough legitimate things in boxing to kind of, save face a little bit. And he's making a ton of money with this. I don't think that the public is just going to totally turn on Jake after this. They might, but I still think that it serves Jake's larger scheme, because even if people tune into the next Jake Paul fight to see him lose. Like, what if Jake Paul fights Mike Tyson here, beats Mike Tyson, becomes the most hated guy in the sport, and then fights, let's say, Badu Jack, or not even somebody that big. Let's say he fights Sergio Mora, a former middleweight, 154 and middleweight guy. What if he fights DAZN's, Chris Mannix's sidekick, Sergio Mora, after this? Well, then people are going to tune in. Okay, now we're fighting a boxer who's an old boxer, but who's got technique, who's pretty good. Sergio Mora should be able to handle him, right? Well, people are going to pay to see Jake Paul lose. The dollar all goes to the same place. You know what I mean? I don't think Jake Paul is after fans. He's after attention at the end of the day. Marco Cardona is in the house. What's up? Thank you for coming through. Benji Tucker says, belts and champions need to be easier to track and to understand. Yeah, I shouldn't feel like I'm having to explain computer code logic or, like a chemical compound in chemistry. You know what I'm saying? Because for instance, on the Canelo versus Munguia undercard, bear with me here. Mario Barrios will be fighting Fabio Maidana for the WBC interim welterweight title. Well, who's the WBC actual welterweight champion? I believe that's still Terrence Crawford. He hasn't been stripped of that yet, right? Or has he? Well, whoever wins Barrios versus Maidana is going to be the interim WBC 147-pound champ. Also on that undercard, Brandon Figueroa versus Gabriel Maestre. Maestre had beaten either Alantes or I think it was Michael Fox. He's beaten a couple old fighters. Maestre has. He's a relatively new fighter if you look at his record, but he's an old fighter. He's like in his late 30s. But that's going to be fought for the WBC interim featherweight title. Well, who's the actual featherweight WBC title holder? 126-pound title holder it's Ray Vargas, and he just defended it and kept his belt in that draw against Nick Ball, right? Nick Ball's about to fight Raymond Ford, who's holding another 126-pound title right now. So WBC interim featherweight title again, Brandon Figueroa versus Gabriel Maestre. Hopefully the winner of that, let's say it's Brandon Figueroa, who's one of my favorite fighters in the division. I just love his volume. Hopefully he fights for the actual title, after that against Ray Vargas. Also on that card, Iamontis Stanionis is fighting. I'm trying to think of who he's fighting. It's not a big name. Let me see who Stanionis is fighting. But Stanionis, just to let you know, he's going to be defending his WBA regular welterweight title. So he's not the super champion for the WBA welterweight title, because that would be, I think it's still Terrence Crawford, right? Unless, did they strip Crawford of all of his belts already? I think that he still holds most of the welterweight titles. I think it's only the IBF who has actually made Jerron Boots Ennis, who's about to fight Cody Crowley. They made that official today. Go ahead, Eddie Hearn. He signed with Matchroom. He's got a good fight already. And Eddie's just singing his praises right now. Eddie Hearn is like, yes. But Terrence Crawford, I think, still holds 3 of the belts at welterweight. But the regular welterweight WBA title is Stanionis' belt, and he won that off of Butayev in his last fight. He hasn't fought in such a long time, but he's going to be returning to the ring, fighting for a lesser version of the welterweight title. So yeah, they've got to clean that up. For a moment, it looked like the WBA was going to start unifying those regular belts to clean it up, so there's not like a super title holder and a regular title holder. Like for a while, the regular WBA title holder at heavyweight was Trevor Bryan, and then I think it was Daniel Dubois beat him for the regular title to then put him in line to fight Alexander Usyk for the actual title. It's a mess, total mess. And both the WBC and the WBA have their total bogus titles under their actual title. By the way, on that undercard, Jesus Ramos is going to be returning to the ring as well. Jesus Ramos lost that controversial decision against Erickson Lubin on one of those, either a Benavidez undercard. It was some major PBC undercard. It might have been Canelo versus Jermell Charlo undercard. But yeah, Upheaval 963 is in the house. What's good? Thank you for coming through. Let's see. Marco Cardona. Yeah, James Kirkland did come in hot against Canelo and got smoked. You know, it was looking interesting for like the first round. I'm like, damn, could Canelo take all this heat? Because like, you know, James Kirkland throws hard punches and he's a strong dude. He beat like a near prime Alfredo Angulo, I believe. Like that was like his signature win around that era, I think. But yeah, James Kirkland was pretty good. He was best, obviously, when he was being trained by Ann Wolfe. But yeah, Canelo, before long, ended up counter-punching James Kirkland to death. Like, you know, he was unconscious by the end of that fight. And if Jaime Munguia is not careful and gets too reckless, that can happen to him. I think that Canelo's actually going to invite that type of output from Munguia because it's going to open him up. Now, if Munguia could fight in a clever enough way to not get clipped too badly in return, yeah, the volume is going to work in his favor. But again, I think that he should give Canelo a mix of volume and then fight, backing up a little bit, make Canelo start using his legs to walk forward. Because I swear, the legs are the first to go. I don't care how charged up you are going into like a workout or whatever. Some point in that workout, you're going to be reminded, oh yeah, damn, this is what fatigue feels like. And Canelo's going to be reminded of how he felt in those later rounds against Golovkin in the trilogy fight, how he felt in those later rounds against Dimitri Bivol and against John Ryder, if Munguia is able to employ the right strategy. Let's see. So DJ, let's see. Stan Tucker said Kirkland's trainer, Ann Wolfe, would have done better against Canelo. Maybe. But she comes in pretty hot too in a lot of those fights. She has one of the most most viral or memeable right now knockouts. One of the most impressive knockouts that you will find was courtesy of Ann Wolfe. But yeah, I'll give you my quick takes on the Canelo versus Munguia undercards. Or undercard, singular. Barrios, I expect him to beat Fabian Maidana. Probably, damn, you know, Barrios had been looking pretty good. He looked really good against Ugas, right? Barrios by, damn, I'll say by stoppage. I was going to go with decision. I'll say by stoppage. Brandon Figueroa is going to eventually overwhelm his opponent. Same with Stanionis. I think Stanionis and Brandon Figueroa, I believe, pick up stoppage wins. Jesus Ramos, I also think is going to pick up a stoppage win over Johan Gonzalez. So I think that you're going to get stoppages on the undercard. The one that I'm least sure about is Mario Barrios against Fabian Maidana. I don't expect any major upsets. This isn't a great undercard, to be honest with you. Like there are way more. There are a lot of undercards with more 50-50 fights, but I think that this is a scenario where when Canelo fights, you got to pay him so damn much that you don't have enough money remaining to populate the undercard, unless you're Turki Al-Sheikh, like he's doing with this Terrence Crawford versus Madrimov undercard. He's just like filling it up. He's trying to get, if Deontay Wilder beats Zhilei Zhang, which is a big if. Big if. But if he does beat Zhilei Zhang, Deontay Wilder, it looks like he's going to fight Jared Big Baby Anderson. That would be interesting. That'd be interesting. But, and Crawford doesn't make the same kind of money as Canelo, right? But I have the hunch that if Turki Al-Sheikh got in the Canelo business, you would have Canelo fights with lights out undercards as well. Again, it's almost like Turki Al-Sheikh is a boxing fan's dream come true. It almost defies logic. And it definitely defies business and profit making, at least in the typical boxing business model. By the way, 2 days after Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia, we've got Naoya the Monster Inoue versus Inoue-Nery. Like that one's kind of going under the radar a little bit because we got a Canelo fight, because we got this positive PED test from Ryan Garcia. Antonio Maiz. Do I think Freddie Roach will have the right game plan for Munguia? Ultimately, no. I think that Munguia will do a lot of the right things. I think he's going to have some good moments. I think we're going to get moments where, Canelo just shells up and it's like, whoa. And Munguia is going to look pretty good. But I think it's going to hit a point where Canelo will start walking Munguia down. This fight will hit a point where Munguia gets tagged with something that doesn't totally rock him, but that gets his respect enough to where he starts taking a step back, starts changing levels and looking to jab again. And then you'll have a more confident Canelo starting to come forward a little bit more and deliberately going to the body, setting him up for bigger shots up top, looking for Munguia to start letting his hands go. Because when Munguia gets tired, he'll be a little bit less defensively responsible, opening up opportunities for Canelo to hit him with something super meaningful to then rock him and eventually stop him. I kind of think it's going to be a late round stoppage for Canelo, somewhere between rounds like maybe 8 through 10, something like that. I think that might have been what I gave my actual prediction as well. But I think that they're going to come in with some of the right game plan. I just don't think he's going to be able to sustain it. Canelo's got a lot of experience. Like the dude boxed Erislandy Lara and Floyd Mayweather and Miguel Cotto and Caleb Plant and Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith. He's Daniel Jacobs, Triple G several times. Like the dude's got a ton of experience. Again, I think that I feel similar to how Paulie Malignaggi described this kind of happening at a time just before it's too late for Canelo to beat Munguia. I think he's still got enough of his abilities and skill set to handle business in this case. And I think that Munguia's style will actually allow Canelo to pick up his first stoppage, knockout or TKO since the Caleb Plant fight at the end of 2021. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that the style is going to make Canelo look spectacular. But where's Canelo? If Canelo wins, we're in May, who will he fight in September? Now, I really wonder about that because Canelo's got to be tired of hearing about David Benavidez. But, the WBA just made another bogus move, making Edgar Berlanga Canelo's mandatory. So the WBA sat on their hands for as long as David Morrell, like a very impressive 168-pound fighter, like next to Jaime Munguia and maybe Christian Mbili, maybe Diego Pacheco. Like, he is one of the most impressive looking fighters in the division, period. David Morrell Jr. Why didn't the WBA ever make him Canelo's mandatory? But you know who they just did make Canelo's mandatory? The moment David Morrell announced that he's going up to 175, they just made Edgar Berlanga the mandatory. I'm like, how are you going to do that? And Canelo, with the boxing landscape, would probably pivot from this PBC fight, pivot from this Jaime Munguia fight, to then do business with Eddie Hearn. They've done business in the past. It's like, welcome home, Canelo, for Eddie Hearn against Edgar Berlanga. I could totally see that happening. And that would be that would be frustrating as hell. That would be so bad. But if I had to guess, I think that's where they're going to go. I don't think it's going to be Jermall Charlo. I would like to see Jermall Charlo get back in the ring to fight somebody better than Jose Benavidez Jr., but not as good as like the top notch guys. I just want to see Jermall Charlo get some rounds under him again. And I doubt that it's going to be at 160. I'm not going to get into the fact that he still holds that middleweight title, by the way. Poor Carlos Adames. What they need to do is Janibek versus Carlos Adames. That's what boxing in the middleweight division needs right now. But yeah, Naoya the Monster Inoue versus Inoue-Nery is about to take place. A lot of people aren't giving Nery a chance. And if you look at the odds, Naoya Inoue is like a 10-1 favorite against Nery. Like, Nery's a really good fighter and has been a good fighter for like a long time now. He's been one of the best in the division, like a top 1, top 2, top 3 guy. And he has failed a PED test in the past. He's lost once in his career. It was against Brandon Figueroa. The overwhelming pressure of Brandon Figueroa. But he's won some really good fights too. And he did have one of the fights of the year last year against Azat Hovhannisyan. Inoue-Nery fought like a blood and guts battle last year against Hovhannisyan. Naoya Inoue is not Hovhannisyan, although I would like to see Hovhannisyan fight, Inoue. I thought Hovhannisyan was an underrated fighter for a couple of years. Hovhannisyan also gave Ray Vargas a run for his money back in the day. But Inoue is a big betting favorite, like a 10-1 favorite against Inoue-Nery. Look, I'm not totally counting Inoue-Nery out. He does get hit. He hits pretty well. He's a good boxer. I don't think he quite has the hand speed of Inoue. And by the way, Inoue-Nery has already fought since that Azat Hovhannisyan fight. It was a second round TKO. So Inoue-Nery's pretty good, but the monster's the monster. And he had a tougher fight than usual against Marlon Tapales. That's how he became a unified champion in this division. But look, I tend to think Inoue-Nery has a better shot than a lot of people that I've talked to about this fight. A lot of people, like for instance, TJ, who was in the house earlier, was, telling me why he thinks that this, like a lot of the monster's other fights, is a mismatch for, Naoya Inoue to just take control, win the fight, probably in spectacular fashion. But Inoue-Nery's got enough dog in him and enough skills, I think, to make this a tougher fight than expected. But Naoya Inoue knows the task at hand. He knows Inoue-Nery's track record. Inoue-Nery is a former champion, former multiple time, champion. I think he's a multi-divisional former champion. So look, I'm going to do a preview in the next day or two on this fight, but I just want to say that I think that Inoue-Nery has a real chance in this fight against Naoya Inoue. But the hand speed might make a difference. The power is obviously crazy for Naoya Inoue. DJ, and by the way, again, it's 2 days after this Canelo versus Munguia fight, so that means that it's going to be like super early in the morning on Friday, on Monday. So it's going to be, if you're on the West Coast, the main event's probably going to take place sometime between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. If you're on the East Coast, it's going to be like sometime between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. I kind of like those cards. I always like it when there's like a fighter who's got like a really off schedule because they're like in a totally different part of the world. A lot of Australian fighters are like that too. Like when Tszyu was first coming up and fighting like Jeff Horn. I think that the Jeff Horn fight was like super odd hours as well. Let's see. Jay Foreman said, I'll be rooting for Nery, but I get why Inoue is the favorite. I think it'll at least be entertaining while it lasts. So should he be that big of a favorite though? Like a 10-1 favorite? I get if he's like a 4-1, even 6-1, 10-1, like a minus 1,000. That's pretty high. DJ said, in your opinion, who is the most underrated, or what is the most underrated weight division in boxing? Let's see. Right now, maybe 130. I would say maybe 130. Because, Joe Cordina had a difficult fight in his last fight against Eduardo Vasquez. So people aren't too high on Cordina. O'Shaquie Foster is one of the belt holders in that division. People I think respect O'Shaquie Foster, but they don't see him as being like super duper elite. Emmanuel Navarrete is just leaving the division to fight Dennis Baranchyk, not Ivan Baranchyk, but Dennis Baranchyk for a vacant title up at 135. Oscar Valdez is also at 130. Lamont Roach Jr. just beat Hector Garcia at 130. Conceição still at 130. Eduardo Nunez. I might have met Eduardo Nunez when I said Eduardo Vasquez. But yeah, he's at 130. So 130's got some guys. So maybe that division might be a little underrated. What else could be an underrated division? Well, I mean, the best division, one of the best divisions right now is is 140, and I think with all the star power there, I don't think you could say that it's underrated right now because they've got Teofimo Lopez. They had Ryan Garcia, who I don't know if is ever going to fight at 140 again. Devin Haney. So they got a lot of star power at 140. I wouldn't call that underrated. Lightweight is kind of interesting because a lot of the major talent went up, but they still have Tank Davis, Vasily Lomachenko, William Zepeda, Shakur Stevenson, Yeah, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's underrated because it's lightweight. It's one of the glamour divisions right now. Maybe, I don't know, like Junto Nakatani is at 118 right now. Naoya Inoue moved up from 118. But aside from Nakatani, they've got like the other Inoue, Kuma Inoue. They've got Emmanuel Rodriguez, who was one of Naoya Inoue's signature fights a few years ago. He's still active. He retired, Emmanuel Rodriguez, then came back. Nonito Donaire, I think, is still fighting. He just lost to Alex Santiago. Maybe 118 is a little bit underrated, but nah, I don't think so. 122 just had Stephen Fulton get annihilated by Naoya Inoue, who just became undisputed against Marlon Tapales. You still have MJ Akhmadaliev at 122. Sam Goodman beat Rais Alim, who was a good prospect for a minute. So you've got Rais Alim, you've got Sam Goodman, you've got Inoue-Nery. Maybe 122, because you've got MJ Akhmadaliev, Sam Goodman, Rais Alim. You've got these kind of up and comers, and you've got the monster Inoue. So maybe 122 is a little bit underrated. But yeah, 154 is picking up a lot of steam. Yeah, good call. 154 has kind of seen as being like, okay, it was Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castano for the battle for undisputed, but then came Tszyu. Sebastian Fundora was there for a couple years, right? Still is. But for a while, you had a bunch of guys that were just beating each other. Julian J. Rock Williams, Jarrett Hurd, Eris Landy Lara has always been in the mix there. Jamal and Jermell were there. Canelo was there several years ago. Liam Smith had been there. Yeah, I already said Jarrett Hurd. There was another guy that I'm not remembering who was at 154 and was one of the best guys there. But you've had Austin Trout was another 154 guy who was always in the mix. Erickson Lubin. But then you've got this, so you got the emerging Tszyu. Now you've got Madrimov. Now you got Terrence Crawford. I imagine Errol Spence is going to be at 154. You've got Bohachuk, who just beat Brian Mendoza, who had knocked out Sebastian Fundora, who's now the WBC and WBO champion. Jesus Ramos. Yeah, Charles Conwell, who looked really good on that recent undercard. Murtazaliev, who's the IBF champion after beating Jack Culcay for the vacant belt. Yeah, maybe 154 is the ringer of a division that's not fully getting its due. So yeah, 154 probably. But yeah, we're going to wrap this one up in a second. Oh, by the way, DJ said, can Ryan Garcia do damage at 147? Like a lot is, Vergil. Virgil's at 154. Yes. 154 is the division right now. Straight up. Yeah. I'm so excited about that fight. I'm going to try to get tickets. I'm going to see how expensive they are. It's going to be way more expensive than the last two fights I went to, which were Regis Prograis versus Jose Zepeda, and before that I went to the Battle for Undisputed between Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano. Both of those fights were super reasonably priced. I'm imagining that Terrence Crawford versus Madrimov with possibly Wilder versus Jared Anderson on the undercard and Tszyu versus Vergil Ortiz. I'm expecting this to be an expensive ticket, but I'm going to see what they are, and I want to go to this fight. I want to go to this fight. I do. I want to have seen Terrence Crawford in the flesh. I want to have seen Vergil Ortiz, who I think I'm kind of pulling. I like both Vergil Ortiz and Tszyu, but Vergil Ortiz, ever since I saw him fight Mauricio Herrera, I was like, man, like this guy's really ferocious with the way that he punches. But Tszyu is a lot to handle. You know what I mean? For your first actual 154 fight, this isn't, what's the guy's name? Fred Lawson. This isn't Thomas Delorme. This is Tim Tszyu. So you've got to favor Tim Tszyu, but this is going to be a tough fight for both guys. And Tim Tszyu, I still put like an asterisk by that loss. You know what I'm saying? But, this is a tough fight to return to for Tim Tszyu. I would have liked to have seen Vergil Ortiz fight like a, I don't know, like a Brian Mendoza first before fighting Tim Tszyu. You know what I'm saying? Like even Jesus Ramos before fighting Tim Tszyu, it's like you're going to go right to the top of the hill and fight Tszyu. But hey, again, props to Vergil Ortiz. Like I would have wanted to see him fight maybe Bohachuk before fighting Tim Tszyu. But yeah, 154 is pretty lit right now. Can Ryan Garcia do damage at 147? DJ asks. Everything right now is in question with Ryan Garcia. I can't say anything about Ryan Garcia in terms of what I expect performance-wise. I don't even know when he's going to get back in the ring. We have to see what's up with these PEDs. Before the PED positive, I would have said, yeah, he could do some things against some 154 guys. In fact, I thought that the idea of him versus Errol Spence had some intrigue to it because Errol Spence has sustained a lot of damage lately. And I don't know about his confidence. I don't know about his chin, his durability. I don't know where Spence is right now at this stage. But Ryan Garcia versus Spence, yeah, that would have been interesting. Ryan Garcia versus Giovanni Santillan, the guy who beat Alexis Rocha, stopped Alexis Rocha. I'd be like, yeah, I could see Ryan Garcia really possibly winning that fight. Ryan Garcia versus Alexis Rocha. Yeah, maybe Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia against Mario Barrios. You'd have to really you have to give Ryan Garcia at least a puncher's chance in a lot of these fights. What if it was Ryan Garcia versus like David Avanesian? Maybe Ryan Garcia. Look, David Avanesian turned a man into a mouse in Josh Kelly when Josh Kelly fought Avanesian. But then we saw Avanesian get uppercutted by Terrence Crawford and knocked out cold. But Avanesian, I think, could still give like a Ryan Garcia problems with Avanesian's style of pressure. But you got to kind of pause a lot of the Ryan Garcia talk in terms of how we could match make for him going forward. Like Ryan Garcia versus Mean Machine. I don't know. Ryan Garcia versus Roman Villa. I don't know. We saw Roman Villa beat Rashidi Ellis. Then we saw Roman Villa lose to Boots Ennis. Ryan Garcia, everything comes into question with this new evidence and this new positive PED test. Let's see. Antonio Maíz said Vergil Ortiz versus Tim Tszyu is a tough one to call. It's going to be a war. Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for both those guys. So, I mean, something's got to give. Something's got to give. Like, no Vergil Ortiz's two 154 opponents weren't blue chip elite opponents at 154. They weren't true 154 guys, right? And they weren't top tier guys. But damn, you just finished them both, dusted them off both in the first round. That's got to stand for something. But I would have liked to have seen Vergil Ortiz get some work in, get a few rounds in at 154. Upheaval 963. Yeah, that's what I said that on Twitter and earlier in this video. Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn, PED versus PED, staged in Florida. Call it the Juice Bowl. Have it in they don't even have to check in with an official weight. You just come in at whatever weight you come in at. You know what I'm saying? And call it the super mystery weight division. The WBC could create a new belt for this occasion. Yeah, Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn, 2025. Let's see. EK. Hey, EK's in the house. What's going on? Yeah, so bad for Devin Haney. Yeah, it's terrible because, again, I said this at the top of the hour, but the damage that Devin Haney sustained might be irreparable. Like, we don't know what Devin Haney is going to look like, career-wise going forward. We just don't. And no amount of money is going to change that reality. I feel like he lost some boxer years, if you will, in that fight. Yeah, Tszyu went through hell in his last fight. And the hell that he went through, I mean, it did end up being a slugfest. He took a lot of punches and had that nasty, nasty cut. Vergil Ortiz, it went from, being inactive because of his rhabdomyolysis, but now he fought in January. He just fought in April. Now he will be fighting in August. I'm wondering if this repeated activity, I'm hoping it doesn't occur, but I'm wondering if it can possibly cause the rhabdomyolysis to flare up. I hope it's not the case. I hope he sees several healthy years going forward and could totally put this stuff behind him. That's what I'm hoping for. But you always have to just wonder if I just have to see how that plays out. But it is in the back of my mind. Like, I just hope that he's going into this next fight again, especially against Tszyu, healthy. People, 963 said, have Harvey Doc ref the fight. Harvey Doc, aside from this latest fight, I like Harvey Doc. I think that he's one of the best referees of this right now, just like Jack Reese was the guy for a while. Kenny Bayless, like, you see all refs in really questionable situations. Like Tony Weeks, I looked at as one of the best refs. I've liked Tony Weeks over the years. He let that Badu Jack versus, maybe he shouldn't have, but Marcus Brown versus Badu Jack, that one where he's got the bloody ref shirt. Tony Weeks let that one go the distance, but then he had those two super questionable stoppages, and then that hurt Tony Weeks' reputation. I feel like a lot of refs go through it, but Jack Reese is one of the best ones. Harvey Doc, I look at as being one of the best ones. And then you could have like certain judges that have like terrible scorecards, have them, like Tim Cheatham. A lot of people say that Tim Cheatham is one of the best, or like Steve Weisfeld, but you see all judges, all refs in like head scratchingly bad situations. But yeah, Harvey Doc on it. I was going to say put Tony Weeks on it, but he would stop that fight like in the first couple of rounds. That'll be no fun. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming through on this one. Again, Canelo versus Munguia taking place this weekend. One note about Jose Ramirez versus Francis Barthelemy. I didn't expect Barthelemy to be that competitive. I thought the fight was going to go the distance, which it did. I picked Jose Ramirez to win via decision, which he did, but I didn't expect him to get drilled with so many straight left hands. It's going to be interesting to see who Jose Ramirez fights next. I don't think he's ready. Look, is he ready for Teofimo Lopez? In some ways, yeah, but maybe he should be fighting like an Arnold Barboza. But I wonder if Golden Boy, who just signed Barboza and just signed Jose Ramirez, would put Jose Ramirez in there with Arnold Barboza. I don't think Golden Boy would do it. So I'm curious to see how they match make for Jose Ramirez next. EK, do I think Canelo's age will show up? Yes. I think that it has been showing up, but I don't think it'll show up to the degree that Jaime Munguia wins the fight. Munguia throws a lot of punches in a lot of bunches, and he's got Freddie Roach strategizing, and I hope he fights a somewhat measured fight where he goes forward for some of the fight, in some of the moments, in some of the rounds, and then dials it back to make Canelo use his legs to come hunt him down. But I think that the age will show up, but Jaime Munguia doesn't have like tricky timing. It's almost like you could kind of gauge when he's going to start letting his hands go. You know what I'm saying? Like the patterns start to get a little predictable. I don't know if Munguia at this stage, at this point, is good enough to start throwing enough kind of curveballs and throwing enough like off-speed pitches to get Canelo guessing enough to really put a hurting on Canelo. I still don't know if like predictable output can hurt Canelo. I think Canelo, he's pretty good at like rolling with punches a little bit. He'll have like the high guard when Munguia really starts coming in. And he's got a great chin that we haven't really seen crack yet, aside from super early in his career. So yeah, I think that Canelo's age will show, but I think that he'll still win the fight. And I still think that he's gonna. I was back and forth on Canelo via decision or Canelo via stoppage. I ended up settling in on Canelo via stoppage. Jay Foreman said, I don't think Munguia has a good back foot game. I think you need to beat him. I think you need that to beat him. Yeah, you've got to have some sort of distance management. You've got to make reach work against Canelo. Canelo's about 5'8.5". So if you're 6 feet, you've got to be able to, in the slow, uneventful moments, win those minutes, win those frames of the round. You know, if there are 3 blocks, 3 minutes per round, you've got to be able to win the slow ones where if there's no like firefight, you've got to let the jab rule the day and control that minute to where, okay, when sparks start flying and Canelo starts letting his hands go, okay, we'll deal with that as we deal with that. But you've got to at least have a measured enough game to be able to kind of relax and win the round while relaxing a little bit, where you're not having to throw a 4-punch combination to win a moment against Canelo. You can just kind of sit back, feint, jab, feint, jab, change levels, fake, move back. Make Canelo hunt you down. Let like 5 to 8 seconds pass. Feint, move laterally, jab, move. You got to do different things to be able to win the moments where you're not really exerting a ton of energy. I think that Munguia needs to do that. I don't know if he could do that. If he could do that in moments, I don't know if he could do that sustainably across several rounds to win the fight. I think the volume will catch up with him. I think he'll get a little excited maybe in the wrong moments and will get caught. And then Canelo will start hunting it, like walking him down. And Jaime Munguia, when he starts getting rocked, and we saw it against Derevianchenko. We saw it a little bit against John Ryder. We've seen it against Spike O'Sullivan. When he gets rocked, Jaime Munguia, and kind of feels like he's got his back against the ropes, he starts letting his hands go. I think that he'll get rocked a little bit against Canelo. His instinct will be, well, I'm going to show him. He'll start letting his hands go, and then he can really get hurt that way. Let's see. EK said, I hope Canelo jumps out of the ring Khabib style and goes after Oscar. That would be great. That would be really funny. It'll be funny and not funny, but it'll be like a spectacle. EK said, I think Canelo's been on the retirement run for his last couple of fights. He's just fighting because he knows every fight he will get 30 million. Yeah, maybe that's where he is. We will find out depending on how he schedules his next fight. Now that he knows everybody's talking trash about him because he's not fighting David Benavidez, if he goes from this Munguia fight to an Edgar Berlanga fight, yeah, I think a lot of people will have had it with Canelo, and I think that, that will prove your point that he's on a retirement run. People said Munguia needs to jab and go to the body early and often. Yeah, make Canelo feel shots to the body, make him deal with enough volume, but also make him use his legs. Make him walk, make him have to move his feet. But yeah, thank you guys once again for coming in. I hope everybody enjoys the fight. We'll see what happens with this Ryan Garcia positive PED test. You're right. I haven't seen a lot of people attack Canelo's body either. Even Golovkin went to Canelo's body a little bit, but he was more so headhunting. I was thinking that maybe Callum Smith was going to go to Canelo's body, but he really didn't. I also thought that either Chavez Jr. or Alfredo Angulo. Kirkland kind of went to his body a little bit, but I thought that Angulo would go to his body. I thought Cotto, which he kind of did, I thought Cotto would go to his body. I thought Chavez Jr. would go to his body. But we haven't seen it in recent years. Good point. Upheaval 963, thanks again. EK, thanks again. Karma Serene, thank you for coming in. Thanks again. Jay Foreman, thank you for coming in. Antonio Mais, thank you. Miami Kid J, thank you for coming in. I'm sorry. Miami Kid J asked, what do I think is next for Haney? Should he take a softer touch like Arnold Barboza? Something like that. What would be another good opponent for Haney? Well, I think he should just defend against his mandatory since he's still the champ. They're going to change that. They're probably going to change that loss to a no contest. Defend your title against Sandor Martin. That's what I think Haney should do next. DJ, thank you again for coming through. Miami Kid J, again, thank you. Stan Tucker and Dad and Mom, thank you for coming through. Benji Tucker, my cousin. Brexley, thank you for coming through. Marco Cardona, thank you for coming through. Flamin' Sports Media, thank you. Turkia, thank you for coming through. Sports Hulk, thank you. Caesar, thank you for coming through. Lee Van, thank you. TJ, also Chilltown Boxing. TJ in here is Chilltown Boxing on Twitter. Check out his feed. He's one of the best with the boxing picks and like his parlays, his betting parlays. Phenomenal work. Yeah, you guys have a good weekend too. Heck yeah. And enjoy that undercard. It's not a great undercard. Hopefully we could get maybe some interesting, close to an upset or maybe an upset somewhere on that undercard. But yeah. Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming through. Until next time, we're going to pick this back up. I've been trying to get more frequent with the lives. But yeah, again, until next time, I'm Woog. Thanks y'all for tuning in. Peace.